Hi, I'm Greg Pruitt with Nihon Lounge. Welcome. And I wanted to do as kind of my first long form video on this channel. I figured it was only appropriate that I talk about my first experience with Japanese. Now, I'm 44 years old, so I grew up as an 80s kid, and in the 90s was going to junior high and high school. I don't know what it's like now, but back then, if you were going to high school, you had to take language classes, and you had to take at least two language classes. Now, it wasn't uncommon as it is now for a lot of people to take Spanish. Okay, Spanish, and these days you're seeing a lot more people being offered Chinese. There's even here in Idaho full Chinese immersion classes and kids in elementary school learning Chinese. But back in the day, there was Japanese. I think there was French, if I remember correctly, and there was Spanish, obviously. And I honestly couldn't tell you, based on my memory, what drew me to take the Japanese class. I had a friend that was in the class, and I don't know if he was going to take it. It was just like, hey, come take Japanese with me. And at the time, you really don't think about that. You're not really thinking how hard the language is compared to something like Spanish, which has a lot of crossover with English, and the structure and everything's similar. And it's just way easier for English speaking people to pick up on Spanish, where Japanese is completely backwards of everything that I knew. And look, I was not a great student in high school. I didn't like school. I hated it. I didn't get the best grades, but I took Japanese and signed up for Japanese. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name of my teacher. He was the nicest guy in the world, super calm, just very patient with students, which is probably tough when you're teaching something extremely difficult like Japanese. And the thing I remember the most from that class, and he used to do this speed race. And so when you're learning hiragana, okay, there's a lot of letters in Japanese compared to English, a ton. And what he would do was a contest where he would time you, and you had to go through the entire alphabet as fast as you possibly could. And he would just sit there and listen to you. And man, I was very competitive. And so I would just sit there and practice that over and over and over again and go through all of the letters, every single one of them, and saying them as fast as I could. And ultimately I came out of that. I kept it for a long time. I don't think I have it anymore, but he had a headband that I think said Japan on it or something like that, and then had the flag on there. And I kept that for a long time because I won in my class the fastest speaker for doing the hiragana, or doing the alphabet in general. But it was absolutely strange to be in that class, though, because again, unlike Spanish, where the letters are basically the same in terms of how you're writing, you just have to know the words. In Japanese, I was learning hiragana and katakana, right? And we did a little bit of kanji, not much in a class like that because it's a beginner level class. And I think he was just more focused on teaching, basic phrases and all that kind of stuff. But it was really kind of strange in a place like Pocatello, Idaho, to be taking Japanese. There wasn't exactly a lot of Japanese people in Pocatello, Idaho. There's not a lot of Japanese people in Idaho even now. And so it was strange. And I if I had to go back and guess, he probably had some connection to Japan. Maybe he lived in Japan for a while. I'm pretty sure he traveled there for leisure fairly frequently. And so maybe like me, he just loved the culture. He loved the language and wanted to spread that with other kids and get them to enjoy the culture and the language as well. We did cultural events and stuff in the class. Just absolutely loved it. So I don't know what it's like where you live. Is Japanese offered? The last I looked there, and there's not really a great number on this. There are some foundations that try to track some of this stuff. I believe between middle school and high school, there's somewhere around 500 in the entire United States. Okay, so that's a fairly low number of places that offer Japanese. Even here in Idaho, we still have a couple. I think there are 3 or 4 high schools offer some level of Japanese class. Most of the, I think, institutions, the colleges still offer Japanese. There was Japanese classes at Idaho State University in Pocatello when I was there. I think BYU Idaho offers some classes, and if I had to guess, Boise State as well as University of Idaho probably offer some Japanese level classes. But in terms of middle or high school, the number is somewhere around 500 to 550 institutions that offer Japanese. So depending on where you live, if you have the opportunity, if you're a junior high or high school student and you're thinking about taking the class, I know it's easy to just take Spanish because a lot of people take Spanish, and Spanish is extremely useful living in the United States. And Chinese is now being offered in a lot of places, and that's a widely spoken language now, where Japanese is somewhat declining in terms of how many people speak it, both natively and outside of that. But with the advent of and the real big push of anime, I think that has invigorated a lot of kids to want to learn Japanese and understand the culture. So anyway, let me know in the comments did you take Japanese in junior high, high school, college? Let me know. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe. Thank you, and God bless.